Hello everyone, and in this video I will be talking about nanotechnology in vaccine development. Imagine a single strand of human hair. Now shrink it down 80,000 times smaller. Can you even picture something that tiny? That is a world of nanotechnology, a realm where materials are so small their properties start to defy what we know at the macro scale. So what makes nanotechnology so revolutionary, especially in fields like vaccination? The answer lies in its scale and precision. So to illustrate, think about sugar. A cube of sugar dissolves slowly because only its surface interacts with water. But when you grind it into powdered sugar, its vastly increased surface area causes it to dissolve almost instantly. This principle of surface area is one of the key advantages of nanotechnology. Now, let's take it to the nanoscale for an even more fascinating example. Gold, in its bulk form, is shiny and yellow, prized for its luster. But when reduced to nanoparticles, gold transforms. It can appear red, blue, or even green, depending on the size and shape of the particles. This dramatic change happens because of a phenomenon called surface plasmon resonance, SPR, where light interacts differently with nanoparticles than it does with larger pieces of the same material. This is the magic of nanotechnology. It allows us to manipulate materials in ways that unlock entirely new possibilities. And when applied to vaccines, this innovation becomes a game changer, enabling faster, more efficient, and more adaptable solutions to global health challenges. Vaccines have changed the course of human history, tackling diseases that once devastated entire populations. Thanks to vaccines, diseases like smallpox are completely eradicated, and others like polio and measles are almost close to disappearing. But creating vaccines using traditional methods isn't easy. The process can be slow, complicated, and difficult to ramp up quickly in emergencies. To understand why nanotechnology is such a breakthrough, let's first look at traditional vaccines. Most vaccines we've known use either weakened or inactivated viruses, and these work by giving the immune system a safe version of the virus to respond to, so that it knows how to fight if the real thing ever shows up. But developing these types of vaccines takes time and involves many complex steps, from cultivating large amounts of the virus to inactivating it, testing it, and making sure it's safe. So, in a pandemic situation, we simply don't have years to spare. This is where nanotechnology comes in. Nanoparticles can be engineered to deliver just the essential parts of a pathogen, like specific proteins or pieces of genetic code, directly to the immune system. By doing this, scientists can avoid using the whole virus altogether. Nanoparticles can also be tailored to target specific cells in the immune system, boosting the effectiveness of the vaccine as well as reducing the side effects. So, in short, nanotechnology allows us to redesign vaccines all the way from the ground up, making sure the process is faster and more precise. Not all nanoparticles are the same. Different types have different strengths, and each one can bring something unique to the vaccine design process. So, now let's look at all these three types of nanoparticles. First up, we have lipid nanoparticles. They're widely used in mRNA vaccines and are made from fat like molecules, similar to those found in our cell membranes, so they're highly compatible with the body. Lipid nanoparticles are especially valuable for carrying molecules like mRNA, as they protect the mRNA and help deliver it to target cells. We saw this in action with COVID-19 vaccines, especially the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines. Lipid nanoparticles can also encase the mRNA, helping it reach the cells and fuse to their cell membranes. This then helps it release the genetic material. And once inside the cell, this mRNA instructs the cell to produce a harmless part of the virus, the spike protein. This in turn trains the immune system to recognize and respond to the actual virus. Not all nanoparticles are the same. Different types have different strengths, and each one can bring something unique to the vaccine design process. So let's take a look at three types of nanoparticles. First up, we have lipid nanoparticles. These are widely used in mRNA vaccines and are made from fat-like molecules similar to those found in our cell membranes, so they're highly compatible with the body. Lipid nanoparticles are especially valuable for carrying molecules like the mRNA, as they protect the mRNA and help deliver it to target cells. We saw this in action with the Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. Lipid nanoparticles encase the mRNA, helping it reach the cells and fuse with the cell membrane to release the genetic material. So, once inside the cell, this mRNA instructs the cell to produce a harmless part of the virus, the spike protein. This, in turn, trains the immune system to recognize the virus and respond to the actual virus. Not all nanoparticles are the same. Different types have different strengths, and each one can bring something unique to the vaccine design process. So, we have three types of nanoparticles here. Let's take a look at the first one, lipid nanoparticles. These are widely used in mRNA vaccines, and they're made from fat-like molecules similar to those found in our cell membranes, and this makes it highly compatible with the body. Lipid nanoparticles are especially valuable for carrying molecules like mRNA, as they protect the mRNA and help deliver it to target cells. We saw this in action with our COVID-19 vaccines, specifically Pfizer BioNTech and the Moderna one. Lipid nanoparticles encase the mRNA, helping it reach the cells and fuse with the cell membrane to release the genetic material. So once inside the cell, this mRNA instructs the cell to produce a harmless part of the virus, the spike protein. This, in turn, trains the immune system to recognize and respond to the actual virus. Next up, we have polymeric nanoparticles. These are made from synthetic materials like PLGA, or more in full form, polylactic co-glycolic acid. They're incredibly stable and versatile. These particles can carry proteins, DNA, or other antigens, and they work well for vaccines that need controlled release. Unlike lipid nanoparticles, which are great for mRNA, polymeric nanoparticles are better suited to protein-based vaccines. They release their contents gradually, which helps maintain a prolonged immune response, potentially reducing the need for booster shots. And because they're so stable, polymeric nanoparticles are ideal for vaccines that may be needed to store for longer periods of time. And finally, third on the list, we have virus-like nanoparticles, VLPs. These are structurally similar to viruses but contain no genetic material, so they can't really cause infection. Instead, they act like decoys that the immune system recognizes as a threat, and VLPs are already used in some vaccines, for example, the HPV vaccine. In this case, VLPs resemble the human papillomavirus's outer shell, giving the immune system a safe way to practice fighting the virus. And because VLPs look so much like the actual virus, they prompt a really strong response, which is key for effective protection. Nanoparticles play a powerful role in vaccines. Beyond simply carrying components, they can also act as immune boosters and not just carriers. Nanoparticles can be functionalized with specific proteins or peptides that attract immune cells, and this enhances their visibility to the immune system. And so, by displaying antigens in an organized manner, nanoparticles act as models for the immune system, offering a structured blueprint of the virus without carrying any genetic material. The structured display makes it easier for the immune system to recognize and respond to the pathogen, increasing vaccine efficacy and also enabling lower doses to achieve robust production. Other types of nanoparticles are designed to mimic structures on pathogens, which can stimulate the immune system directly. So, all that said, why are nanoparticles such a game changer for vaccines? One big advantage is stability. Nanoparticles can protect delicate vaccine components, like mRNA or proteins, which would normally break down quickly in the body. For instance, without the protection of lipid nanoparticles, which we previously mentioned in this video, the mRNA in COVID-19 vaccines would be destroyed by enzymes before it could even reach the target cells. Now that we've discussed all that, how about future directions? Where is the field of nanotechnology in vaccine sciences heading to? Let's imagine a future where vaccines can be stored as separate components, mRNA in one vial with nanoparticles in another, that self-assemble into functional vaccines just before administration. So, the approach of self-assembling nanoparticles could overcome storage challenges by allowing each component to be stored under less stringent conditions. The mixing could happen at room temperature or even at the point of care, and this reduces the need for cold chain logistics altogether. Next up in the future, we have thermostable nanoparticles. Here, researchers are exploring novel lipid formulations that incorporate piperidine-based ionizable lipids, which have shown promise in improving long-term stability at refrigeration temperatures. These lipids help reduce aldehyde impurities that degrade mRNA over time. Future vaccines could leverage these advancements to create thermostable nanoparticle systems that remain effective for months or even years when stored at standard fridge temperatures. This would be a game changer for global vaccination efforts, particularly in low resource settings where maintaining ultra cold storage is impractical. Another futuristic concept is the development of nanoparticles embedded with temperature-sensitive molecular sensors. These sensors could monitor environmental conditions and release stabilizing agents if the temperature fluctuates outside the given optimal range. This would act as a self-healing mechanism, ensuring that vaccines remain potent even if exposed to temporary temperature changes during transport or even during storage. Finally, on our list of futuristic nanoparticles, we have freeze-dried nanoparticles. Lyophilization, or more commonly known as freeze-drying, is another approach being explored to improve vaccine stability. So, by removing water from the nanoparticle, vaccines can be stored in a powdered form that remains stable at room temperature, and when needed, these freeze-dried vaccines can be reconstituted with water or even saline solution just before administration. This method not only enhances thermostability, but also reduces shipping costs and waste due to temperature excursions. Now, to wrap it all up, nanoparticle-based vaccines hold the potential to revolutionize global health by overcoming critical challenges in production, storage, and even distribution. So by developing vaccines that can be stored at higher temperatures or even at room temperature, we can significantly expand access to life-saving immunizations, especially in regions with limited infrastructure. Innovations like hybrid nanoparticles, freeze-dried formulations, or even virus-like particles are paving the way for more robust, stable, and finally, accessible vaccines. These advancements will not only reduce costs and minimize wastage, but also ensure equitable distribution across the globe. So, as we continue to explore these groundbreaking technologies, we are moving closer to a future where rapid, effective responses to emerging diseases will be possible, transforming public health on a global scale. That brings me to the end of our video, so thank you so much for your attention. We hope you learned a little bit from our video, and these are some of the references used. Most of the illustrations were either from BioRender or directly extracted from Canva.